The year is almost done. Whether 2022 is a year you can look back on fondly or are glad to see the back of, it's been a strong year for video game releases. And as a gaming YouTuber, I've got an almost moral obligation to sum that up in some way. In 2022, I've played 23 of the games released in this year. Nowhere near the number of games that came out in a single month, let alone the whole year, but still a respectable amount for one person. Rather than rank them all in a single list, here, I'm going to go through a number of gaming categories and award a winner in each one. Maybe not as prestigious as the Game Awards, or even the opinions of a much bigger channel, or hopefully still worth something if you're watching this. One disclaimer is that if you've been following the Horror Game of the Year award on this channel, this video is nothing to do with that. As one of the founders and presenters of that award, I'm not on the jury to nominate games. What follows is purely my personal opinion and has no bearing on who is nominated or who will win the inaugural Horror Game of the Year. Oh, and I've not played Elden Ring or God of War Ragnarok, so you won't find them on this list. While plenty of games have good graphics, art direction is a whole different thing. It's about not just looking good, but having a coherent and striking vision for your game which feeds into the world building, atmosphere and strong sense of place. First, the runners-up. Horizon Forbidden West offers up a bright, wide and lush post-apocalypse in which the skeletal remains of what went before have been overtaken by nature and machines that mimic it in a way that speaks to the mournful beauty of its world. Stray's rusted and broken down robot city is folded on top of itself in a way that reflects not only the divisions of class and the closed-in cybernetic dystopia, but also the verticality of life as a cat. Scorn's world is a literal decaying corpse, the inspiration of H.R. Geiger bleeding through the viscera and rot of the path our silent protagonist travels. As for the winner, pipping them to the post is SIGNALIS, which manages to combine an isometric pixel art game world with anime cutscenes to stamp its own identity onto and set it apart from its competitors in the survival horror genre. Once again, we have three runners-up. A Plague Tale Requiem had a deep, heart-rending story rooted in grand fantasy world-building. Stray expertly used environmental storytelling and interaction with the robot denizens of its buried city to paint a compelling picture of the world that went before, mourning a fallen civilization. Horizon Forbidden West continued in that series' tradition of expertly combining deep lore and personal stakes in the fight to save the world. But this is the second award I have to give to SIGNALIS. It manages to offer up a fully realised setting, a story of personal loss and cosmic horror, and tell it in a way that leaves so much open to interpretation and investigation that the narrative feels like a discovery rather than something thrust upon you, and one that will stay with you long after the game is finished. There were some fantastic performances in games this year, and we have four runners-up. Ashly Burch is pretty much a given, as she is what makes Aloy such a compelling protagonist in Horizon. Sure of herself, unwilling to put up with crap from self-important men, but also contemplative and vulnerable in moments too. Also from Horizon, Lance Reddick is still fantastic as Silence, stealing every scene with his distant, smarmy, razor-sharp wit. I also want to give props to Sam Witwer as Captain Ferris in the Callisto Protocol, with the rangy displays from the quiet menace he exudes at the start to the scenery-chewing fury on show at the end. Rounding off the runners-up, Logan Hannon's role as Hugo in A Plague Tale Requiem is one of the reasons that game's ending hits so hard, which is especially impressive given he's only 12 years old. The winner here, though, has to be Charlotte McBurney as Amicia in A Plague Tale Requiem. She is absolutely the heart of the story, and you can feel every drop of her desperation, fury, panic or frustration as you guide her through the game and her struggle to save her brother. She is a huge part of the reason that Amicia de Rune is worthy of being an icon alongside Ellie Williams, Lara Croft or Aloy.
Who do you think you are to define me?
I'm Amicia de Rune!
Shut up!
And I kneel to no one!
There are four runners up here, as all of these scores made their way onto my video game music playlist. The haunting, mournful beauty of the Horizon Forbidden West score reflects its world. SIGNALIS has one of the best survival horror soundtracks in an age, as unique and esoteric as the game itself. The score for Midnight Fight Express is something you could work out to, the fast-paced techno reflecting the tough and frantic nature of the indie beat-em-up. While Stray's soundtrack is perfectly suited to the slow, inquisitive exploration of its dead robot city. However, A Plague Tale Requiem takes this award. Not only is the score in turns haunting, frenetic and mournful, reflecting the beats of the story, but composer Oliver de Riviere's cues also ramp up or slow down to match your playstyle, proximity to enemies and more, in a fantastic use of smart, adaptive music and gameplay. There's one runner-up in this category, and it's Midnight Fight Express, an isometric beat-em-up that sees you as a former criminal enforcer now fighting your way through legions of criminals, crooked cops, rat people, and robots. Yes, you heard right. With a drone as your ally, the story is all manner of bonkers, whilst the gameplay is as tough as your character. It's relentless and addictive, with a soundtrack that can accurately be described as a bop. Definitely check it out. The winner in this category, which frankly took me by surprise very recently, is Vampire Survivors. I originally got it on Android, perhaps the only mobile game I've ever bothered with, before discovering it was also on Game Pass. Its deceptively simple gameplay involves roaming the field and avoiding the enemies coming towards you whilst your character auto-attacks. The goal is to level up and upgrade wisely to become the bull of hell, as the game puts it, in order to survive even more impossible waves of enemies. And in all honesty, someone might need to stage an intervention at some point and send me to Vampire Survivors Anonymous. In this category, we have two runners-up. Horizon Forbidden West is one of the only RPGs that doesn't give me instant open world fatigue. The world is gorgeous, dangerous, and feels fully realised and lived in, whilst the combat feels better than ever. Even the human-on-human combat, Zero Dawn's weakest element, has been built upon, and though it still isn't to the level of games where the primary focus is fighting other humans, it is much improved. But it will always be taking on the mechanical behemoths across the world and uncovering the fantastical, twisting story intertwined with deep lore that makes this game an absolute must for me. If The Last of Us Part 1 was a brand new game I had never seen before, it would possibly be my game of the year. But of course the story, characters and soundtrack all made their mark back in 2013, and that core experience has been preserved by the new edition, which is a straight remake rather than a reimagining like the recent Resident Evil titles. However, not only does it look fantastic and not only has it added in the suite of accessibility features from The Last of Us Part 2, but its gameplay is vastly improved with the enemy AI from the Part 2 game engine, and extra features such as speedrun and permadeath mode bring even more replayability to a game I've already replayed so many times. As a fan, I honestly couldn't be happier with this version of the game. The winner, A Plague Tale Requiem, is far and away one of the best things to come out of 2022. Its narrative is compellingly told, powerful and tragic, framing a really solid stealth action gameplay experience. The story stuck with me so much that as well as giving the game a glowing review, I made a full video analysis of the narrative in comparison to that of The Last of Us Part 2. Whilst the gameplay is so fun that I was more than eager to explore it again by playing both the Xbox Series S version and the PS5 version, as well as New Game Plus. There's room open for a sequel or successor game, and I really hope we get it. More of this style of game from Asobo Studio will definitely make me a very happy gamer. For this category, we have three runners-up. Fobia St. Dinfna Hotel is an indie survival horror game that proves that the indie game space is the saviour of the survival horror genre. It offers everything you might expect: inventory management, exploration, puzzle solving, and disincentivized combat, in a package of cosmic horror and paranormal intrigue. Scorn was one of the most interesting and unique games that released this year. You play a silent protagonist in a lonely, grotesque world, and the game does nothing to disabuse you of your loneliness as it thrusts you in and lets you figure it out for yourself. Story and gameplay alike. It's got great puzzles, combat that could be better but fits with the world, an impressive H.R. Geiger-inspired aesthetic, and a grotesque, haunting beauty that means it deserves to be experienced, even if you don't know what the hell to make of it. The Chant was a very recent surprise, and I was glad to see something which not only played a lot like Silent Hill, but also utilised its spiritual and folk horror setting in inventive ways for its combat, health and upgrade systems so that they felt connected to the lore of the narrative. It was very interesting and a lot of fun. SIGNALIS wins this category, however, due to being a genuine survival horror masterpiece. SIGNALIS iterates on the staples of the genre whilst easily carving out its own identity with its oblique narrative, retro-futuristic dystopia, top-down pixel art game world and anime cutscenes. This brings us to the big one, my personal game of the year. For reasons I've already talked about, all of the runners-up here deserve your attention. Horizon Forbidden West, A Plague Tale Requiem, The Last of Us Part 1 and Vampire Survivors easily rank as some of my favourite releases of 2022. But my personal game of the year, whilst you've probably guessed it this far into the video, is the best surprise to come out this year. Survival horror fans are eating well at the moment. Not only do we have a superb remake of Resident Evil 2 from Capcom that brought the gameplay to a new generation, but the legacy that Capcom created is thriving in the indie space. Last year's game of the year for me was the superb Tormented Souls. This year we've also gotten Fobia, Dinfna Hotel and the Chant, with hopefully more great titles to come in 2023. But SIGNALIS stands out in so many ways and manages to deliver excellence in all of them. The fact that this was developed by just 2 people makes it even more absurdly impressive, and I definitely want to see more from Rose Engine. I cannot recommend this game enough, and believe me, I've tried. So there we go. This list, like all lists which rank pieces of media, is of course subjective and based on my personal opinion. You may have a different view of the games mentioned, or have played a different set of games altogether. Either way, I'm interested to know what you think, so drop a comment down below and let me know what would win your personal game awards. If you enjoyed this video, then give it a like and consider subscribing to keep up to date with all my content, like the video that's just popped up, which YouTube thinks you should watch next. Check out the links in the description to join my Patreon for as little as £1 per month, or donate to my GoFundMe, and get your name in the credits of my videos, like those rolling up now, who I want to thank for supporting me and my content. Thanks for watching, and see you next time!